The wild card, one of, if not the biggest mystery in all of Blue Lock, which turned one of the most wholesome caring characters into the lone wolf dark hero we see today. It's been an unanswered question with countless theories on it, myself included. Most of you guys probably came from that video, but I won't lie, the video is a little outdated and I sound like a robot or zombie during it. So with the NEL coming to a close and the reveal of the wild card coming closer and closer, I think it's an appropriate time to remake the wild card video. Specifically, the final Kunigami wild card video. This is the best theory I can come up with the context that we have, and I revised my old theory as I kind of rambled on in my first video. I put like 2 theories in one. This theory will be structured exactly how I think it will go, steps 1, 2, and 3. One clear, concise theory, and again, it's perfect timing to do this as we do have the bye week for Bastard Mutant, and we might just get the wild card flashback. It's bound to happen, we all know it, whether it just be Kunigami training and then we get a flashback before PXG versus Bastard Mutant, or during the game when he sees Shido, some PTSD will just hit him out of nowhere. I'm super excited to do this video. This is a theory I spent almost 2 weeks on, getting all the evidence, making different scripts and stuff. Trust me, later on in the theory, all the dots are connected, so stick around till that. It's so much nostalgia, there's so much mystery behind why Kunigami is like this now and what actually happened in the wild card, so let's hop into it. So the first actual mention of the wild card that we get was all the way back in the second selection arc when Kunigami challenged and lost the 2v2 battle against Shido Ryusei. After losing the 2v2, it is said that the person who wasn't picked will be sent home, no longer being able to participate in Blue Lock, and that's it. But in Kunigami's case, we know that's not what happened, as there were 2 doors, either the wild card or an exit, and you take the path on where you want to go. Surprisingly, that's all we know from the wild card. There is some more context I will go over later that connects into the theory, but Kunigami obviously goes down the path of the wild card without knowing the context of it, and this is where the theory part starts. What actually happened when he walked past that door? So firstly, we got to get some facts out of the way, like who are the qualifying players, who played in the wild card, and also the timeline for it. I think this is a pretty obvious one. Anyone who failed a second selection had a chance at the wild card. We could also include the first selection and pre-selection test, but I think for simplicity's sake, it's just going to be the second selection. So this means it wouldn't include players like Kira, who was eliminated in the game of tag, and Okawa, who is the striker for Team Y, but it would include the members of Team Z who did pass to the second selection. And the timeline where people got eliminated is also going to be different. This is a plot hole I see in a lot of wildcard theories, and my own included. But for example, take Kunigami and Naruhaya, another OG Team Z member who we saw got eliminated. Naruhaya, we can assume, was the first person to get eliminated in the second selection, as Isagi Nagi and Barou and Naruhaya are the only duos in the room at the time, and made a match almost right after the 24-hour wait time. So the reason why I bring this up is that if Naruhaya did walk down the wild card, I don't think they would have just made him wait. Like, imagine he just stands there until the second selection ends. That'd be pretty funny, and using anime logic, it could very much happen. But specifically for this theory, I think the sooner you get eliminated, the more of a disadvantage you have, and going into the competition. So for the exact timing of the wild card, we know a few things about it. It ended with Kunigami walking out after the U20 match, which was said to be 3 weeks after the second selection ended. Alright, that's the first few facts we do need to get out of the way. Now let's talk about the competition, the actual contents of it, and how Kunigami came out as the only survivor. In chapter 169, we see Isagi ask Kunigami about the wild card and why he was called a copy man by Noel Noah. Kunigami gives a very brief explanation, saying that the wild card was an experiment to create a vessel, someone with the same physique as Noel Noah. It was also a survival game where only one person remained, who managed to get similar specs as him. So now that we know the wild card was a survival game where only one survived, we can assume that the second you get in there, you're starting some sort of game. This is why there's a disadvantage for people like Naruhaya, who got eliminated earlier in the competition. The earliest start time was Naruhaya, who got eliminated on the second day, and I believe this competition will be split up into 2 important parts. The first part of the wild card, and a majority of it, is a training section, which prepares them, and all comes down to the final survival game, which is where the main theory comes in, so you don't want to miss that. The training section, I believe, is an obvious one, to train and get the same specs as Noel Noah. Since we know the wild card lasted 3 weeks, I think 3 of the weeks will be dedicated to training, and then the final day is the survival game. There isn't really a way to put someone one-on-one with each other and see who has the better physique. I mean, you could probably just make them fight each other, but come on, it's Blue Lock, not Baki. So training session does make sense so everyone is on the same level. For example, if they immediately started it and put Kunigami against Naruhaya, who doesn't have the best physical stats, it wouldn't even be a competition. Again, it also makes sense that people who failed earlier would have more of a disadvantage. For example, Naruhaya would have to endure more of the training for a longer period of time. But during these 3 weeks, it'd be an even more intense training session than after they finished the Blue Lock first selection, which we know was already pretty intense. It's not your normal training session, as Kunigami is visibly seen with more muscle mass while also being toned, and to improve your physique like that while already having a pretty good physique in 3 weeks is actually crazy. The training would focus on having the same physical stats as Noel Noah, most likely basically training your physique, acceleration, and of course being ambidextrous, all of which are reflected in Kunigami, the winner of it all. His explosive acceleration can be seen in the first Bastard Mean in training, his physique is at its peak, being complimented by everyone, and also the ability to shoot with his right rather than his signature left. We'll see a lot of weightlifting, muscle training, pushing yourself past your limit, stuff like that, which challenges both your physicality and your mentality, as we know that Ego did force different philosophies upon them. This is what I mean by it's not your normal training session. This is what separates the wildcard training from the rest. These different philosophies could be just non-stop training, pushing yourself past your limit, forgetting everything else, and chasing to be the #1 player. So you can never lose again, as again, all the wildcard players are losers. It just makes sense. It was also said to be forced on them, so I imagine 3 weeks of constantly pushing yourself is absolutely mentally exhausting, and why we see Kunigami look like he's been through it all. It also explains why he left his old hero mentality, as if you were forcibly being told to think a certain way every single second constantly, you'd probably start believing it or only think of only that. To make it even more mentally challenging, I think as well in the training session, Ego would also trick the participants, not giving them an end goal to reach, just saying if you last as long as possible, you could make it back, or to just keep training. It would keep the players in suspense as well, not knowing when the training is going to stop or when they'll make it back to Blue Lock. They would just have to keep running with no victory ribbon in sight. We've seen Ego do this at the end of the first selection as well, in literally a training session, not telling them when it's going to end, just the players training till they're told otherwise. There is no shortcut to getting stronger, just endless training, and this is why Kunigami told Isagi if you want to get stronger using shortcuts, you're finished as a football player. But basically, put yourself in their shoes, just training every single day with no end in sight. It's like running through a never-ending tunnel. Would you still continue? I sure as hell wouldn't. This would probably have another mental effect on Kunigami as well. All that training, pushing with no goal, while also having all those philosophies forced upon you. Man, it makes sense why he had such a drastic change. Bro was absolutely suffering. It had to be a drastic change for Kunigami, who looked like he had an iron will, to pretty much look mentally drained. However, this will only be one part of Kunigami's change of mentality. The other will come in the survival game, the other part I mentioned earlier. After a non-stop grueling test, it would probably come out of nowhere that they can stop training, and they're gonna enter the next phase. No information on what's happening next, as again, they were running with no goal in sight. I believe they'll all be gathered into one room, and this is where Kunigami will meet all the wildcard entrants. These would be the people who survived the endless training, the people who wanted to come back to Blue Lock, and of course the people who had the dream to become the best player in the world. And out of all the 90 fodder players who made it to the second selection, I think there are only a few people that will make it to the survival game, who didn't give up, who kept pushing through even though there was no finish line. And of course, it's none other than the Team Z members who didn't qualify: Naruhaya, Imamura, Iemon, and Kuon. I don't think all 90 players who failed the second selection would be here in the survival game. I assume some of them may have just went through the exit or just gave up on the training. And plot-wise, it makes sense as well. We don't know anything about the other players who failed, only the Team Z members. And there's even more evidence for the Team Z members. We have development for them. We got Naruhaya and Kuon's backstory. They went through hell and back together in the first selection, and they all had the will to live in Blue Lock and become the best. It also just adds more impact if it was these 5 competing against each other. I think it would really be dragged out if it was everyone. Anyways, getting back to it, this is the most exciting part of the theory, the survival game. I believe after they'll be gathered into one room, they'll greet each other, maybe talk about how they lost in the second selection, just overall be happy that they're surviving together. Keep in mind, the rules haven't been announced yet for this game, and we know that Team Z likes to work together. They've been only through the first and second selection, both of which were super team oriented. They'll most likely all want to qualify and go back to Blue Lock together. Maybe they even think that they already qualified and can go, as again, they don't even know they're in a game yet. They've just been told to gather in a room with no information. Now listen closely, because this is literally the most Blue Lock sounding theory I've ever made, the survival game rules. I'm getting excited literally talking about it. After training for 3 weeks straight with all those different philosophies forced upon them, a test will be announced for all the surviving players, putting all their skills and everything they learned to the test in a physical training game, consisting of 5 competitions. And out of the 5 players from Team Z, at the end of each of the 5 competitions, the player who performed the best will be able to eliminate one player of their choice, with the last person standing winning their ticket back to Blue Lock. Guys, tell me I did not just cook with this. This hits every single point, and we're gonna get into it in just a second. But if this isn't the most Blue Lock sounding theory out there, I don't know what is. Being able to choose who you want to eliminate, with the competition being your previous teammates, a sad but obvious choice you have to make in order to win. It's such a Blue Lock way of thinking. The competition games will determine who is the perfect vessel for Noah. The one person who managed to get their physical abilities similar similar to him. This would most likely include challenges that relate to Noah, like his fast acceleration, physical abilities, and who can copy his ambidextrous talent. We know that Kunigami is the sole survivor of the wild card, and if he went through with this, that means he eliminated everyone from Team Z, with the choice at his hands, crushing the dreams of his former teammates, his friends. We all know well that Kunigami wanted to be a superhero in football, someone who can save others, someone people can look up to. We also know that he wanted to beat everyone fair and square, and with his physical abilities, he did beat everyone fair and square. But was this really what he wanted? He'd most likely question that philosophy because he ended up crushing the dreams of his friends, his former teammates, just to survive in Blue Lock. And this final test would be a complete opposite of his previous goal and philosophy, yet again putting him through another mentally changing event. God, Kunigami should just sue at this point because that amount of psychological torture, eliminating your friends, being told you need to become the best and that's all your life is worth, endlessly training even if you don't want to. No wonder why he ended up like this. And also the correlation and comparison to the physical stats of Noah and the remaining members of Team Z is actually crazy. Imamura's weapon is speed and technique. This would relate to Noah's acceleration. Kuon, his jumping power. This would relate to Noah's insane physical specs, where he made a jumping goal. Iemon, yeah, I think he's kind of an outlier, but he's said to be a jack of all trades. Maybe his beefiness relates to Noah's physique and power. And Naruhaya has off the ball just like Noah, but also another thing that we'll get to in just a second. But each of the Team Z members who were eliminated have something that relates to Noah, which would give them an advantage because that's what their skills are in. Getting back to the theory though, the first challenge would be in Kuon's favor, something to do with jumping. For the contents of it, whether it be jumping shots, maybe even jumping shots with both your right and left foot, I don't know, something to do with jumping. And as we know, in chapter 156, we see Kunigami sprinting and jumping like a madman, and we all know he's the sole survivor, so Kunigami wins the first competition of the wild card, and he has a choice to eliminate any player he chooses. It'll be such a hard choice, especially for Kunigami, doubting if he wants to even do this anymore, as it'll go against his superhero mentality. But he'll be reminded of the force philosophies Ego put on him during the training session, and the first choice to eliminate will be none other than Kuon, the person who was jump reliant. Kunigami beats him fair and square, like his superhero mentality, but he ended up crushing the dream of his friend and eliminating him. Someone he literally reached out his hand to, always included, and always wanted the best for. Now this would put a hit on Kunigami's mentality, but if he's made it this far, he might as well go all the way. Imamura and Iemon would be the next to get eliminated in the next competitions. I think this would be an off-screen since it would be too long to see all the competitions and see them get eliminated one by one, leaving at this point a Kunigami who's probably depressed after winning so much, and Naruhaya. I forgot to mention the competition relating to Imamura would be probably acceleration, and relating to Iemon would probably be physique, but the last challenge will be Noah's signature. Of course, who can copy his ambidextrous shot? Now, why I left Naruhaya for last was for a specific reason. Since he lost to Isagi because his direct shot was terrible, I assumed during these 2-week training session, he grinded like crazy to improve that. His shots out of Kuon, Imamura, and Iemon would probably be the best, so it would make sense to be a shooting competition between Kunigami and Naruhaya, who has the second best shooting stat out of the group. He also cleared the second selection relatively quickly, being number 38, even higher than Kunigami, so his shooting would give Kunigami some trouble. Naruhaya has a sad backstory, a dream to fight for, and out of all the Team Z members that have failed, he's probably the one people like the most, so it makes sense that he's here in the finals. But as we know, Kunigami would end up winning out, and this was because of his training to become two-footed. Without that training, he wouldn't have survived in the wild card, and this is why he said he was forced to become two-footed to survive. This also explains why he was so knowledgeable on physical specs when talking to Isagi, as he spent all that time learning, training, and taking no shortcuts, training endlessly without stop. Kunigami would end it winning out against Naruhaya, eliminating him and solidifying the fact that he just eliminated and crushed all his friends' dreams. And this was because he wanted to be the best, prove everyone else wrong like Shido, Isagi, and everyone in the second selection. This is why we see the switch in Kunigami's mentality from being a hero to wanting to become the #1 player. He already failed as a superhero, so now the only thing he can choose is become the best. After not being chosen by Isagi, losing to Shido, who rubbed salt to the wound and said if he doesn't change himself he won't win, to endlessly training with no goal in sight, to Ego forcing different philosophies on him, eliminating his friends and crushing their dreams one by one, and his superhero philosophy failing him, we are left with the Kunigami we see today, the sole survivor of the wild card. Tell me I did not just cook, but let's recap a little bit here in a single, easy to understand timeline. Kunigami enters the wild card alongside everyone else who lost in the second selection, where they start a grueling training challenge where different philosophies are forced upon them during this. These philosophies can include a change of mentality to become the best, and it also be mentally exhausting, pushing past your limit every single day. After 3 weeks straight of training, all the players who have continued the training challenge will be gathered into a room, and this includes only the Team Z members who were eliminated: Kunigami, Naruhaya, Iemon, Imamura, and Kuon. These 5 players will be putting their training to use in a physical challenge designed to see who has the closest physical specs to Noel Noah by doing Noel Noah inspired challenges such as his gear shifting acceleration and his ambidextrous shots. 5 challenges with the winner of a challenge guaranteeing a safe spot and will have the choice to eliminate a player of their choice from the 5. As we all know, Kunigami is the sole survivor of the wild card, so we can assume he individually eliminated the rest of Team Z, crushing his old friend's dreams. Crushing dreams is the complete opposite of Kunigami's superhero philosophy, where he wants to inspire others. And after all that's happened to him, Kunigami switches his mentality and becomes the dark horse hero we see today. So that's it. That's personally how I think the wild card would go if I had to write it or anything like that. This is the best theory I could craft up. It hits the point of making a vessel like Noel Noah. It makes sense why Kunigami's mentality changed. It creates a one-winner scenario and the survival game. Choosing who you want to eliminate would mirror the second selection choice, which was choosing who you want to play with. I tried to hit every single thing on the mark, and this was the theory that made the most concrete sense to me, and also hit everything I think made the wild card the wild card. Again, this is one of the best theories I've made. I spent way too long collecting evidence, rewriting the script, and just making sure everything made sense in a slightly easy to understand manner. There were so many plot holes and stuff I had to fix so many times over just to get this one solidified theory, so let me know what you guys think of it. This is personally my favorite theory I've made. I always have fun making wildcard theories. So yeah, let me know, and while you're down there, hit the like and subscribe button. It supports me a bunch, and I spent way too much time on this video. If you watched to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate all your support. My name's Hiryo, and I'll see you guys in the next one.